All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're tearing down the anatomy of a modern compromise, and we're zeroing in on what is arguably the single most dangerous vulnerability in security today, the breach gap after detection. For the longest time, we focused so heavily on just building higher and higher walls around our networks. We just assumed that keeping the bad guys out was the ultimate goal. But, well, the threat landscape has evolved drastically, and we really need to rethink our entire approach.
$2.77 billion. That is how much money cybercriminals stole through business email compromise, or BEC, in a single year, according to the FBI. That's a staggering number. But here's the truly terrifying part of all this. They pulled this off without deploying a single piece of malware. No viruses, no complex code injections, nothing like that. It was just pure manipulation of human trust and business processes. This one attack vector literally generates more financial damage right now than ransomware, data breaches, and identity theft combined.
And so that brings us to this massive, critical paradox that basically every security team is wrestling with right now. If our emails are fully authenticated, why are we still getting breached? Because passing authentication checks like SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, it doesn't actually mean an email is safe. Think about it. If an attacker steals an employee's credentials and logs into their actual account, every single email they send from that point forward is going to pass those protocols perfectly. Why? Because the account itself is legitimate. It's exactly like a bouncer checking a perfectly valid ID at the door, totally unaware that the guy holding it is a notorious pickpocket.
Section 1. The authentication illusion and why perimeter defenses fail.
We really need to shatter this misconception that perimeter defenses are enough, mostly because compromised internal accounts are acting as modern Trojan horses. While a traditional secure email gateway or a SEG just sits at the perimeter looking for known bad signatures coming in from the outside, modern integrated cloud email security completely changes the game. By connecting via API, these AI-driven platforms actually monitor internal, east-west traffic. They evaluate intent and relationship behavior to spot that Trojan horse way before it actually does any damage.
Section 2. Anatomy of a BEC attack. Exploring the multi-stage operation.
The life cycle of a modern business email compromise attack is wild. It kicks off with days of reconnaissance. Attackers are mapping your organization, figuring out reporting lines, watching recurring transactions. Next is the credential theft, which honestly might only take a few hours using a fake login page. But then comes the scary part, the dwell time. For 5 days, they just sit there, completely silently. They read, they learn approval chains, they wait for the absolute perfect moment. And finally, they strike. They execute lateral phishing and fraud in mere minutes, completely bypassing your standard rule-based checks.
A modern attack isn't just an isolated email problem anymore. It is a full-blown chain reaction. A threat that starts in the inbox very quickly bleeds into the identity layer, moves right to the endpoint, and spreads all across your cloud environment. Defending against this whole shebang requires a layered security approach that looks way beyond the surface level of just checking if an email has a malicious link. You need deep visibility into how all these disparate systems actually interact.
Section 3. The post-detection gap, the absolute most dangerous window in cybersecurity. The crucial point here is that catching an anomaly is really only half the battle. Let this number sink in for a second. 5 full days. This is the perilous breach gap after detection. It's the median dwell time between an attacker initially compromising an inbox and actually pulling the trigger on the fraudulent action. For 5 days, they're just chilling inside your network. They're setting up hidden forwarding rules, reading highly sensitive communications, and crafting the perfect, highly targeted invoice scam. This is a massive window of opportunity for defenders to step in, but obviously only if they know where to look.
Our source material absolutely hits the nail on the head here, noting that the real gap is what happens after detection. Just throwing more detection tools at the problem doesn't close the gap at all. Correlating signals across the full attack chain it does. During this dangerous gap, security teams are almost always crippled by a slow, manual, and totally siloed SOC investigation process. Analysts are just drowning in alert fatigue, literally spending days trying to piece together a puzzle that the attackers are actively solving in minutes.
Section 4. Investigating across layers and breaking down those silos.
Picture this. You're the analyst dealing with this fragmentation. You get an initial delivery alert at the email layer. Then, maybe a suspicious login event at the identity layer. Later, payload execution at the endpoint. Because your tools don't talk to each other, a phishing alert and a suspicious login 20 minutes later look like two completely unrelated events instead of one coordinated attack. You are basically forced to pivot between dashboards, manually trying to connect dots that the attacker has already capitalized on.
So how do we actually fix this? Context. Context is exactly what makes ambiguous alerts deterministic. Like, is this user currently traveling? Are they using a brand new device? Is this a sudden, urgent payment request to a vendor they've literally never interacted with before? When you combine raw telemetry data with organizational context and historical relationship mapping, boom, the picture instantly snaps into focus and you can stop the attack dead in its tracks.
Section 5. Closing the gap with AI, using automated rapid response.
And this is exactly where behavioral AI and natural language processing step in to close that post-detection gap. It isn't just looking for bad links anymore. NLP understands a user's normal tone, so it spots unusual urgency or weird intent. Graph-based mapping flags out-of-character interactions. AI even uses interaction biometrics, like analyzing someone's typing cadence, to ensure the person banging on the keyboard is actually who they claim to be. Plus, it can use dark web threat intelligence to match compromised credentials and trigger a password reset before a malicious login even happens.
But actually, scratch that. Detection alone still leaves a gap, right? This is where the sheer speed of AI automation truly shines. Picture this rapid response flow. An anomaly is detected. Instantly, the hijack session is terminated. Any malicious mail forwarding rules the attacker created are reversed. Lateral phishing emails are ripped right out of colleagues' inboxes. The AI executes this entire flow to neutralize a compromised account in under 6 seconds. It completely eliminates that 5-day dwell time, all without requiring a human analyst to lift a finger.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty tough question. When your next alert fires, will your team be investigating an anomaly or recovering from a breach? The difference between those two scenarios entirely depends on how you manage that crucial breach gap after detection. You have to make sure your organization has the cross-layer visibility and the automated response capabilities to close that gap before it's too late. Don't just let your detection tools become historians of your own compromise. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.